amazing thing that the Game Boy allowed you to do was play full-blown video games on the move, and it needs to be appreciated how big a deal this actually was in the late 80s. Sure, there were other handhelds, but who wants to hear about them? It was the Game Boy that really pushed this idea of portability. If you were heading off on a long-haul flight, the Game Gear would have ran out of battery before you'd even left the departure lounge. Sacrificing processing power and, well, colours really allowed the Game Boy library to flourish, and now, well into the 21st century as we are, and don't mind graphical limitations as much, seeing as how every retro console looks primitive next to modern video games, we can really begin to appreciate what amazing games did exist on the system. Despite the limitations, it amazes me more than anything when we get something more than just a puzzle or platform game. The most ambitious and most successful titles were often RPGs, huge adventures with multiple layers of depth and game mechanics that fit in your pocket. Nowadays we have amazing titles on even smaller portables, of course, but look, fitting a game like Rolan's Curse onto a cartridge half the size of a cassette tape was such a feat back then. The game is an action RPG more in the vein of Zelda than Final Fantasy. Without getting into the debate of whether Zelda is an RPG or not, seriously, don't worry about it. You play as a noble hero who needs to save the people of Rolan from the evil King Barrios and his hordes of regenerating monsters. There are 3 types of maps, and they're standard tropes: towns, fields or dungeons, and the boss. When in towns, just wander around and talk to people, or don't, they don't say much, and basically walk to the other side. The majority of the game takes place in these semi-linear routes between towns. You transition between screens that usually have respawning enemies, who drop power-ups and weapons. A glaring omission is the lack of any AI at all, including the bosses. Enemies will charge down a pre-scripted path, firing spontaneously. This makes the game pretty easy with a little observation. Only the final boss presents any real challenge, once you've established the safe zones. Movement is a little tricky at first. Your hero moves on a half-square basis and cannot turn around on the spot, so you can't just walk up beside something and attack. You need to stand so that you can slash into its projected path. There are only 2 weapons, a sword that attacks close to you and a fire wand, which fires 3 spaces ahead. They do the same damage, so there's never really any reason to use the sword. The thing is, you can only carry 1 weapon, and picking up the other one means you lose the first until you can find one again. Due to the restricted movement, being able to attack from a distance is very important here, so avoid those swords at all cost. Leveling up is strange, but I kind of get what they were trying to do. You have an attack power and a life power, which you can boost up to 16 and 32 respectively. Killing certain enemies drops strength gloves and armor pickups, amongst other things, which will raise your values. Seeing as how enemies constantly respawn, it's pretty straightforward to max out your abilities straight away. The thing is, these stats reduce somewhat when you complete a stage, meaning it's really up to you how long you want to grind for. Honestly, the game isn't that hard, so you shouldn't need to go all the way. Rolan's Curse isn't what you'd call a long game. It's a couple of hours for first-time players, sure, but there are only 4 chapters. There are nice cutscene narratives between each part detailing the story to you. Upon death, you regress into a sperm. It's supposed to be a ghost, I suppose, which flies away, but don't worry, there are password saves between each chapter and unlimited continues. I would definitely suggest you play to the last chapter because it's the best part of the whole game. Here you're presented with some hauntingly beautiful music in a proper eerie town. I'm talking Lavender Town level of eerie, with even better music if you can imagine such a thing. And there's but one inhabitant of this ghost town, who gives you a lengthy speech about how you've proven your valor. Now go on and defeat the evil Barrios. Well, he also tells you to go and rock that turkey, whatever that means. Once you reach the final boss, the fight itself is not too hard, but it's better than anything up to this point. Looks great too, and is accompanied by one of the thrashiest rock songs to ever come from a Game Boy. Rolan's Curse has a truly commendable soundtrack all round. It's not a cheap game, and its sequel can be downright expensive, but I'd recommend if you can find it.